So this screencast review is focusing on Roman imperialism during the days of the Roman Republic and the consequences of that imperialism. This is pages 151 in your text, if you want to follow along in your text. The most important thing to really take away from this section is the extent to which Rome expanded its territory. It really is becoming an empire, even if the form of government is still a republic. It's becoming an empire in the sense of its ability to control basically the entire Mediterranean by the time the period is done. And we'll see how that territorial expansion occurs. The other thing we want to remember is how the Roman conquest, its methods and its outcomes sort of evolve through this period. In other words, how they go from being somewhat of a power that seeks to develop, to conquer territory, develop almost kind of relationships with neighboring states, but to one that actually is interested in sort of pure conquest and domination, utter military strength, and total subjugation of conquered territories. So in past screencasts, we talked about how Rome sought to bring conquered people in as citizens. This doesn't happen as consistently in the later period of Roman conquest. In any case, the last thing that's important to take away is from this is the wars with Carthage and the Punic Wars. And the wars with Carthage are really the sort of the main event in this period of time. We call them the Punic Wars because that was the Latin word for Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians were the people who originally settled the area we called Carthage. So the time period we're looking at is the years 500 to 220 BCE. And as we had talked about a little bit in a previous screencast, Rome begins here on the Tiber River, a very small area, and initially expands to take over the territory of the Etruscans to the north. And remember, the Etruscans greatly influenced Roman culture. This is sort of the first expansion of Rome and Roman territory, and the first absorption and assimilation of the culture of the people that they conquered. And here in the map, we see right here to the Etruscan territory to the north here, in the northwestern part of the Italian peninsula. It was a 100 years war. In around 396 BCE, Rome finally brought all of the Etruscan territory under its control. Rome had gradually, and we had said this in a previous screencast as well, Rome had gradually expanded to conquer all of the Italian peninsula, including the southern part of the Italian peninsula that was controlled by Greeks initially, and built all of these roads to connect all of the conquered territories. As you can see, it looks very much like a highway map in the modern United States. Many of these roads are still traveled on to this day. They wanted to be able to move goods and products, agricultural products, things like that, up and down throughout the peninsula quite easily. But also they wanted to use the roads in order to more easily successfully administer these conquered lands, right? There's always you always have to administer the conquered territory. You have to bring in government and public works and all sorts of things. So the highway system in Rome, the roads in Rome were very much like our modern highway system in that regard. And you may have heard the phrase before, all roads lead to Rome. That was because all roads did lead to Rome. This map here quite clearly shows that the roads were all directed, not every single one, but many, but for the most part, were designed to bring the products of these conquered territories into Rome and then allow for Rome to administer the conquered territories. The Romans during this time period became very fearful of foreign invasion and were always very aware of being militarily strong. I mean, this never leaves Roman culture. They were always a very powerful military, partly because in 387 BCE, not long after Rome begins its expansion in the Italian peninsula, the Gauls, and we remember that the Gauls, they don't quite show in this map, but the Gauls are to the north of the Alps in what mostly is what we call France today. They sacked Rome, and sack is just a word that means just they invaded and pillaged Rome, the city itself. So they were always very careful to tend to their military strength. And in the 4th century BCE and 3rd century BCE, the Roman infantry, historians believe, were superior to the Greek and Macedonian warriors. Now that's saying something, because we know that the Macedonian warriors in the 3rd century BCE, they're the ones who become Alexander's army that conquers all the territory through Asia Minor, Central Asia, all the way to India. So that's quite a statement to say that the Roman infantry was superior to Macedonian infantry, perhaps. And again, this is what historians think, piecing the past together. So this is our best guess about that. So, but it's probably true, because we do know how successful militarily Rome becomes. One of the other things that becomes true about the Italian peninsula is that the language of Latin spreads throughout the Italian peninsula. In other words, Rome takes the Latin language and spreads it, and using one language throughout a conquered territory is one sort of consistent way of bringing about a cultural unity. Now that doesn't mean that people didn't continue to speak their own native languages, perhaps in the household, that sort of thing. But we see this all throughout world history, that some sort of a power will conquer territory and then impose their language on that conquered territory. Language being such a powerful statement of your culture. Through this time period, too, one of the things that Rome had to do was to build extensive infrastructure. And as you can see, there's a couple of typos. It's a bit embarrassing, but they were excellent engineers, and many of you are writing your looking at engineering as part of your Roman research paper. Here's a picture of the Roman aqueducts to bring water from the Alps all the way into the Roman city. Huge, expansive and extensive infrastructure. This allowed for as many as, in the 4th century BCE, as many as 150,000 people lived inside the city of Rome, and maybe 750,000 people in all of Italy under Roman control. Some of these aqueducts to this day carry water from the Alps into the city of Rome to be used. So we're looking at over 2 millennia old and still working just fine. A couple things to note in this image, in addition to just simply the immensity of the structure, is the arch. One of the key features of Roman engineering and Roman architecture is the arch and its ability to carry extreme loads. The arch is really kind of an engineering breakthrough, and is what makes so much of the massive construction of the Roman Republic and Roman Empire possible. You see this repeated all throughout Roman architecture. Modern day architects and engineers still use the arch as a way of securing and strengthening structures. Also, in this time period, it's important to note that that Rome looked to really exploit conquered lands, and looked at the conquered lands as a way to expand the wealth of Rome and the agricultural produce of Rome. And it was very much an attempt to focus in on growing the glory of Rome through conquest.